Namaste to all of the viewers. Let's start managerial economies, that is MMPC 10. In the last three sessions, we have covered block 1, block 2, block 3. So some parts of the block 2 has been covered in the last session, whereas some parts remain, which we will be covering now, and then we will move on to the block 4. So block 3 basically deals with the production and cost analysis. So we have already covered till the level of relationship between average product and marginal product, average variable cost and marginal cost. We were at the point of break-even chart when our time has elapsed, and so the session was closed. So today we will start from this break-even chart, and we will move subsequently to the long cost run and thereafter to the market mechanism. That is in detail discussing block 4. So break-even chart, as we were discussing on 30th of December, it's a point where companies or where a firm's revenue increases the cost that is incurred. So when a firm revenue surpasses the cost, the point at which it crosses is known as a break-even chart. So if you look at the graph shown here, the graph says that initially there is a loss, say to the point of 500 output. So once this 500 output level was crossed, the break-even happened, and thereafter, whenever the subsequent production increased to say 600 or 700 or 800, the revenue rises, the cost became less, and that's why the profit comes. So this is how the break-even chart displays the relationship between the loss and the profit part. So at break-even point, total revenue is equal to total cost. P into Q is the total revenue, that is price multiplied by quantity. That is equal to TFC, total fixed cost, plus AVC is average variable cost multiplied by quantity. So total fixed cost divided by price minus variable cost per unit is what is the break-even point is known as. So moving on to the profit contribution analysis. The profit contribution is the difference between price and average variable costs. At low rates of output, profit contribution is used to cover fixed costs. That is why it remains in negative. After fixed costs are covered, the firm will start earning a profit. Assume that both price and average variable costs are constant. Profit is equal to revenue less the sum of total variable cost and fixed cost. Thus, pi r is equal to total revenue minus total cost. So if we try to determine the quantity will be determined as Q is equal to pi r plus total fixed cost divided by P minus average variable cost. So average variable cost, P minus average variable cost is how we determine the profit contribution analysis. Then we have an operating leverage. Managers must make comparisons among alternative systems of production. Should one type of plant be replaced by another? This is a constant feature in a firm, because whatever process a manager follows, he knows that there are multiple options to generate the product of the same type. So that is why he has the options to take a decision based on the technical efficiency and economic efficiency of the processes. So consider the degree of operating leverage as E, which is defined as percentage change in profit resulting from a 1% change in the number of units product sold. Thus, E pi is equal to, that is operating leverage is equal to percentage change in profit divided by percentage change in output sold. So this is Q bracket, inside the bracket P minus AVC divided by Q, inside the bracket P minus AVC minus TFC. So with this we have covered the short run cost analysis. Now moving on to the long run cost analysis. So, what is basically a long-run cost analysis? So, look at this figure. The figure explains that in a firm, on a time scale, we have at a cost one, we produce the quantity one. So, it's a short-run average cost based on the average variable cost and output being reflected on x-axis and average variable cost being reflected on y-axis. So based on a particular cost, say C1, at a particular time, the short run average cost is 1. Then for a production of say Q2 unit, the short run average cost is SRAC2. Same way for production of Q3 unit, the short run average cost is SRAC3. For Q4, the short run average cost is SRAC4. So we have a range of cost run curves uh, in terms of output and average variable cost. So how these short run average cost curves convert into a long run? That is what our concept goes. So there are no fixed cost functions, total or average, in the long run. Since no inputs are fixed, every input gets changed, whether it is a factory or a machine. We have to change the machine as per the technological changes happening in the industry. And even the land is not fixed because maybe for the expansion we need some more lands to be there. So the long run cost curve is called planning curve because it helps the firm in future decision making process. The long run average cost curve is derived from short run average cost curves. So basically these all short run average cost curves, SRAC 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, together they make a long run average cost curve. So a firm faces a choice of production with 3 different plant sizes. Let us assume this. Plant size 1, small size, plant size 2, medium size, and plant size 3, large size. And plant size 4, very large size. The short run average cost functions shown in next slide, SRAC 1, 2, 3, 4, are associated with each of these plants. Output rate Q1 could be produced by the plant size 1 at an average cost of C1. Same way by plant size 2 at the cost of C2, we have SRAC curve 2. For output rates of Q2 to Q3, plant size 2 is the most efficient. And for output rates Q3 to Q4, plant size 3 is the most efficient. So bold-faced curve is called an envelope curve as it envelops short-run average cost. Firms plan to be on this envelope curve in the long run. So touching all those points like the point which is based on say Q2, SRAC and SRAC 1 and 2 meet at the point C1 and at the point Q2. So if we draw a curve which covers all the quantity produced Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 over a period of time, this is known as a long run average cost curve. So long run average cost function is indicated by this graph, and then we go on to the economies and diseconomies of scale. So the U-shaped LRAC curve is explainable in terms of what economists call economies of scale and diseconomies of scale. If LRAC declines as output increases, then we say that the firm enjoys economies of scale. If the LRAC increases as output increases, then we have diseconomies of scale. Finally, if LRAC is constant as output increases, then we have constant returns to scale, implying we have neither economies of scale or diseconomies of scale. Economies of scale explain the downsloping part of LRAC curve. Other factors contributing to declining LRAC include ability to use more advanced technologies in more efficient capital equipment, managerial specialization, opportunity to take advantage of lower cost for some inputs by purchasing larger quantities, effective utilization of byproducts, etc. So these are the factors which contributes to the declining LRAC curve. So it is based because of advanced technologies, the things will be there, efficient capital equipment, managerial specialization. So these are the factors responsible for LRSC curve downsize. So economies of scale are often measured in terms of cost output elasticity, EC. So EC is the percentage change in the average cost of production resulting from a 1% increase in output. So EC is what? Delta TC divided by delta Q. So delta TC divided by delta Q, the whole is divided by TC by Q. So if we convert it into marginal cost and average cost, it is MC by AC. So basically, economies of scale can only be measured provided MC is greater than AC. So the moment till the point the MC is greater than AC, we have economies of scale. So economies of scale, what it constitutes? Internal economies and external economies. Internal, we have real economies and pecuniary. Real economies means what? It has got a production block, it has got a marketing area, it has got a managerial area, and a transport and a storage. That is what the logistic is. So these are the area which are the real economies. There the decisions have to be taken so that the firms get the maximum benefit in terms of reducing the cost. And then this is a pecuniary. Pecuniary means bulk buying materials at lower price, lower cost of capital. Lower cost of capital means raising the money or finances through such sources which charges less rate of interest, or advertising at large scale at lower rate, less per unit of transportation, lower wages and salaries due to monosonic power and prestige associated with large firms. So this is how the economies of scale are being maintained. These are the factors. When you look at the production, it is labor, technical and inventory. When we look at the marketing, it is advertising, dealer marketing, and various models and designs. When we look at the managerial aspect, it is a specialization, it is decentralization, teamwork, and introduction of modern managerial and organizational techniques. So economies of scope, according to the concept of economies of scale, cost advantages follow the increase in volume of production, or what is called the scale of output. On the other hand, according to the concept of economies of scope, such cost advantages may follow from a variety of output. So the following equation gives the degree of economies of scope. So economies of scope being represented by SC. So SC is equal to C Q1 plus C Q2 minus C Q1 plus Q2 divided by C Q1 plus Q2. So cost function, like we have seen the demand function, which has got determinants like what? Price. It has got determinants like price, advertising, price of product, price of competitive products, price of supplements, then disposable income. So likewise also the cost has its own determinants. So the cost function expresses the relationship between cost and its determinants, such as the size of the plant, level of output, input prices, technology, managerial efficiency. So all these factors result into the cost. So in a mathematical form, it can be expressed as C, which is represent cost, as a function of SOPTE. So S stands for plant size, O for output level, P for prices of inputs, T for nature of technology, and D for managerial efficiencies. So these are all determinants of a cost function. The cost of production depends on many factors, and these factors vary from one firm to another firm in the same industry or from one industry to another industry. The main determinants of a cost function are plant size, output level, prices of inputs used in production, nature of technology, and managerial efficiency. And how we estimate the cost function? It is an accounting method. So you just take into account what are the factors, add it and get the total. That is what the accountancy does. Engineering method, where we have to calculate as per the technological processes, and acrometric method, that is a statistical approach to calculate the cost function. Managerial uses of cost function. So the estimated cost function can help managers to take meaningful decisions with regard to it. So what it means that what is the use of a cost function for a manager. So if he knows the cost function, how it is going to help him in performing his job. So the number one point is it helps in determination of optimal plant size. Then it helps in determination of optimum output for a given plant and determination of a firm's supply curve. So that way we have ended our block 3, and all the units of block 3 like production function, short run cost analysis and long run cost analysis are covered. So moving on to the fourth block and the last block of managerial economics, MMPC10, we have a market structure. So in this section we will be studying what is the market structure and what are the barriers to entry and how these barriers affect the new entrant, or how the existing firms play a role in creating a barrier to the new entrant. So these type of studies we will be doing in our block 4. So starting with what are the factors influencing the pricing decision of a firm? So there are the 3 factors. Primarily, the number of firms in the industry, it helps in deciding the pricing decision, the nature of product, and the possibility of new firms entering the market. How do we classify the market structures? So market is basically a place where the buyer and seller interacts with each other. So the seller sells his products and the buyer buys it. It may not be in a physical set of form. It can be an online process also. So a market is not a physical representation of a particular place where you can sell some goods or purchase some goods. It might be, it may have one set of a structure which basically works on a physical format, but it has other formats also. So like the more popular nowadays are the online format of the market. So a lot of companies are coming online. So you go on their website and decides about the product, purchase it, pays it online, and the product is delivered to your home. So this is how the market structure is, place of the market. The market structure refers to the degree of competition prevailing in that particular market. The power of an individual firm to control the market price by changing its own output determines the degree of competition, and this power varies inversely with the degree of competition. So if the degree of competition is more, so the price will be determined by the market. If the degree of competition is less, the price will be determined by the firm which is selling the product. So the higher the degree of competition, the less market power the firm has, and vice versa. So what does that mean? That a firm has got a market power means they can capitalize on the pricing of their product. So if the degree of competition is more, means what? A lot of companies are there in the market selling the same type or almost identical type of the products. So a firm has got less market power because it cannot change the price of the product, and if the degree of competition is less, then the product prices can be manipulated or can be changed or can be altered by the firm. So that is how the market power is defined. So market power is generally thought to be the ability of the firm to influence its price. Then we have a structure conduct performance hypothesis. So in microeconomics theory, this hypothesis states that the performance of a firm is determined by its conduct, which in turn is determined by the structure of the market. So how a firm is going to perform in a market is basically determined by its conduct. And definitely the conduct will be influenced by the market. It cannot have a price of its own, because if similar products are there in the market, and the firm wants to raise the price in comparison with other products, then definitely the demand will not be there. So that is how The conduct of a firm is determined by the structure of the market. Pricing decisions are affected by the economic environment in which the firm operates. The central phenomenon in the functioning of any market is competition. The structure of a particular market plays an important role in defining the determinants that affect these market structures. Determinants like price, product differentiation, etc. So the market structures can be classified based on these four characteristics. So if we find one or another characteristics, then we can say this is this type of market structure. So what are the four characteristics on which we have to classify the market structures? The first is a number and size distribution of sales. So how it is defined? So firm's ability to affect the price and the quantity of a product is related to the number of firms offering the same product. If there are a large number of sellers, the influence of any one firm is likely to be less. The example is a vegetable market. So vegetable market, there are a lot of sellers sitting even side by side. So the sellers do not command, the individual firm do not command the price, because if they change the price on a higher perspective or on a higher side, the demand will be less. So whenever the number and size of sellers are more for the same product, then this becomes an important characteristic of a market structure. Then the same way, if sellers are more, then the number two is when number and size distribution of buyers are more. If there are a large number of buyers, they will be unable to demand lower prices from sellers because of large volume purchases. Product differentiation, what does that mean? Products competing in the market are not identical or homogeneous. So they are said to be differentiated, and hence product differentiation. So product differentiation is measured by cross elasticity of demand between two competing products. We have already seen the price elasticity in demand, how the price of substitutes affect the price of the original product. And the last one is conditions of entry in exits. What it refers? It refers to the difficulty or ease with which a new firm can enter or exit a market. When it is difficult for firms to enter the market, existing firms will have much greater freedom in pricing and output. That is why in industries like, say, automobile, in industries like manufacturing of aircrafts, in industries like steel, there are very less number of players. So why? Because why it is so? Because the cost involved in creating this magnanimous infrastructure is so huge or is so high that it is not possible for one to go for it. So naturally, since the sellers are very less in quantity and the cost is so huge, the technical competency required is huge, the skill manpower required is also very huge. So these acts as a conditions for entry. So if the conditions for the entry is tough, then definitely the firms which are operating in the market will have a leverage to price their product and decide about the output. So based on the previous defined four characteristics which we talked about, markets are traditionally classified into four basic types. So one is a perfect competition, another one is a monopoly, the third one is a oligopoly, and the last one is a monopolistic competition. So what is perfect competition? Perfect competition is characterized by a large number of buyers and sellers of an essentially identical product. So identical product means we find a lot of buyers and sellers for the same product. Take an example of soap. We have large number of companies selling the soap products. So this is known as a perfect competition. Monopoly is a market situation in which there is just one producer of a product. Railway is an example of a monopoly. Oligopoly is a market structure in which a small number of firms account for the whole industry's output, characterized by vigorous competition where firms manipulate both prices and volumes. So oligopoly means small number of firms capturing the whole market. So that example we can find in the industry of steel, in the industry of automobile, in the industry of aircraft manufacturing, more particularly in defense related products. So they basically are in a oligopoly structure of the market. Then monopolistic competition, which implies a market structure with a large number of firms selling differentiated products. The differentiation may be real or is perceived by the customers. So, the discussions that we had in the previous slide, we had compiled it into a tabular form, and that is how we display these things. So, perfect or pure competition, the four characteristics are written at the top. So number of independent seller, seller concentration, product differentiation, conditions of entry. So in case of pure or perfect competition, number of independent sellers are large. Seller concentration, non-existence. Product differentiation, homogeneous product. And condition of entry and exit, free. Monopolistic competition, number of sellers are large, but seller concentration is non-existent or low. Products are close substitutes, and condition of entry and exit is free. Oligopoly, sellers are few. Seller concentration is medium or high. Products may be homogeneous or close substitute, and condition of entry is difficult. Duopoly, where there are only two sellers. So number of sellers, independent sellers are two. Seller concentration again is very high. Product differentiation, products may be homogeneous or close substitutes. And condition of entry is very difficult. Monopoly means one. There is just one seller. The seller concentration is also very high. The product differentiation is a remote substitute because the one seller sells the product which has the demand in the market. So even if we try to find out a substitute, it's a remote substitute, like railway. Railway, we have just one organization, Indian Railways, which allows the railway to function. So the ticket pricing of railway or the wagon pricing of railway is determined by the railway only. There is no other body which determines it. So because being in monopoly, the prices are determined by whom? The firm. In this case, it is railway. But there is a substitute also. Even in this monopoly scenario, although not of the same wavelength, but on a different wavelength, you can say the remote substitute. So what are the remote substitutes for Indian Railway? Airline is one of the remote substitutes. Buses are the second remote substitute. Same way, wagon for the goods transfer, we have a truck is one of the options. We have even the aircraft which carries the loads is another option. So the substitutes are there. Of course, it's a remote substitutes. And condition of entry is barred or impossible. Barred because why? The government decides that, yeah, we do not have any other competitor in this field. So that is why the monopoly is there. Once the government decides to give it to the market mechanism, lot of firms will come. Let us take the example of life insurance sector. So initially, from 1956 to approximately say around 2000, the government decided that all life insurance policies are to be marketed or sold by just one or two organizations. The one is LIC, which got the maximum number of sales, and another is a post office. So, but then once in 2001, the government wants that this particular service activity should be given or should be opened for the market. Then a lot of companies came and they started doing. Right now, there are nothing less than 25 to 26 life insurance companies, even 15 to 14 health insurance companies. So a lot of companies have come. Why? Because the government has opened this sector for the market. Factors determining the nature of competitions. So effect of buyers, When there is only one buyer, which is referred as monopoly. Few large buyers, defined as oligopoly. Here the buyers command the price, and price and volume determination in such product often takes the form of negotiation across the table. So effect of buyers means when the buyer numbers are less, either in the form of monopoly or in the form of oligopoly, the prices cannot be determined by the seller. It is rather the buyer who determines at what price they are going to purchase the product. So, and the price and volume determination in such products often takes the form of negotiation across the table. Then we have production characteristics. So minimum efficient scale, MES, of production is the minimum scale of output that is necessary a firm to produce in order to take advantages of economies of scale. Minimum size changes drastically with technological advancements. Availability of raw material, skilled labor, also mold market structures. Then product characteristics. If a firm product is perceived as having unique features, it can command a premium price and the firm is said to possess market power. So that happens. Like we can see in certain areas, in certain FMCG goods, one or two firm command the attention of the customer and command a premium to their products. So that is why their products sell like anything. Then we have a conflict between physical characteristics and minimum economic scale. The government partly offsets this by using the mechanism of levy price, which is the same throughout the country. So what does that mean and how it works? So what happens that suppose we are going to have a factory of cement. So the cement factory can be established either at the production site or say at the market site. So since the raw material, carrying of raw material is difficult, so basically all the factories, cement factories are established at the raw material site. But then a cement factory which is established at Rajasthan, the transporting the goods to say Kerala or to Jammu and Kashmir or to say Bengal, it becomes difficult because the prices vary. So what the government does in order to make a unitary aspect of the pricing thing, the government imposes a levy price, and the levy price makes the thing the price being same for all the consumers, whether they belong to Rajasthan or whether they belong to Kerala or whether they belong to Jammu and Kashmir. For across Pan India, for the same price to be charged on one bag of cement, the government levy duties on it. So this is known as a levy price. So different structural variables, number of independent sellers and buyers, degree of seller concentration, product differentiation, and conditions of interest. In the same way, we have earlier seen this also. In case of number of independent sellers and buyers are, so how it has to be defined? Large number of sellers, then non-existence concentration, then perfect substitutes or homogeneous products, conditions are free. When it is few, then lower concentration is low, substitutes are close substitutes, and entry is difficult. When it is two, concentration is medium, substitutes are remote, entry is barred. When it is one, concentration is very high and there is absolutely no substitute, and entry is barred. So barriers to entry: market selection, building excess capacity, producing multiple products, new product development. So let us study these in details. What are the entry barriers? So entry barriers means by establishing an entry barrier, a firm not only preserves its market share, but could also increase it. And it is broadly classified in these 5 to 6 categories. So the first one is the natural barriers. So what is the natural barriers? Due to the existence of substantial economies of scale, The average cost at smaller rates is so high that the entry is not profitable for small scale firms, thus creating natural barriers. So, large scale production, large scale factories having the capacity to produce on a large scale already has a huge uh, has a huge stock of its product. So these act as a natural barriers. Legal barriers, patents, industrial licensing are examples of legal entry barriers. Strategic barriers, managers undertake investment to deter entry by raising the rival's entry cost. An established firm may change price lower than the short-term profit maximizing price. So for any firm which is a new entrant, it has to run on the curve short-run profit maximizing price. But the established firm can reduce the price even below than that, making it difficult for a new entrant to come and establish its product because that way they have to burn the money. So this strategy is known as entry level pricing. Established firm taking a cost advantage over potential entrants. Building excess capacity is another entry barrier. That is, build and maintain excess capacity over and above the required amount. Then producing multiple products. Economies of scope arise when cost of producing two or more goods together is less costly than producing the two goods separately. So this act, economies of scope, as an entry deterrent for new firms. Then new product development. Producing substitutes for its own product in the market can discourage the entry of new firm. So let's look at this. So barrier to entry is, we have already discussed the barriers to entry: market selection, building excess capacity, multiple products, and new product development. If you look at the graph starts at a fixed cost, say 60. The 60 is a fixed cost. So for an output to be there, the long run average cost curve states that there is a fixed cost and the variable cost is there. Initially it will go down, but later on again it will rise. So this makes it difficult for a new entrant to come into the market because it has already to spend 60 is what they have spent in say 3 years back. So now the price has also gone up. So they have to spend more money in just establishing their firm. So these high cost entry or limit price entry acts as a deterrent for a new firm to come and operate in the market. So factor determining conditions of entry are legal barriers. We have already discussed initial capital cost. That is what we were discussing. Industries producing basic inputs like coal, steel, power, etc. have very high initial cost. Then vertical integration. So vertical integration means that you have a factory which produces, say, a product. So now you own up a factory from where the raw material comes, or you own up a place from where the raw material comes, and then you own up and then you go and open retail shops in the market. So this is how the vertical integration. So being only on a manufacturer stage, you have done a backward integration of linking your activity to the acquiring of raw material, and then subsequently moving on to the forward integration where you have established a direct customer contact by way of retail sale. So this is known as a vertical integration. So a vertically integrated firm is one that produces raw material, that is an intermediate product as well as the final product. Examples of vertically integrated firms in India are integrated steel plants such as SAIL and TESCO. New entrants will find that their capital requirements are very high because the price of the product is determined since he has the hold over raw materials, he has the hold over the manufacturing process, he has the hold over of the final selling. So when it is a vertically integrated, a new entrant firm has to work on all the three parameters. So it becomes a difficult for them. Then there is an optimal scale of production. So optimum scale of Production means the scale of output at which the long run average cost of production is minimum. So optimum scale of output for any product is quite large. Product differentiation is another factor. New entrant faces difficulty to enter the market where the products are highly differentiated. As for example, Kellogg's. So Kellogg's are into the cereal market. So they have 40 types of cornflakes. So even if a firm comes, they can only compete with Kellogg's on say one or two or three different types. But having a 40 types of cornflakes in their basket, it literally becomes difficult for a new firm to come, establish, and take the market share of Kellogg's. So that is how the product differentiation creates a market, a niche for the firm in the market. So going to the strategic entry barriers, so let us discuss slightly in detail about the strategic entry barriers. So innovative activity is almost always followed by waves of imitation. So whatever is new today will be copied by many others in tomorrow. Tomorrow it will be copied by many others. So let's take an example of Hike by Bharti. So Hike was a messaging app. This example is given in the book also. So Hike was a messaging app by Bharti and it was very popular. But once WhatsApp came or Facebook came or even Twitter came, this app was to be disbanded by the group itself. So 2021, the app which was used to be very popular was closed. The shutter was down. Large scale expenditures designed to create competitive advantage are unlikely to realize a return unless that advantage can be sustained. Entry barriers of a market that enable incumbent companies to raise prices persistently above cost without attracting new entrants. So, strategic entry barriers is like these 3 points are covered in that discussion. And all sources of entry barriers fall into one of the three following categories: product differentiation advantages, then absolute cost advantages, and scale related advantages. So now, what is product differentiation advantages? So when buyers distinguish the product of one company from that of another and are willing to pay a price premium to get the variant of their choice, this is known as a product differentiation advantages. So people are coming to your firm because your product, although commands a premium, is has developed a taste or a habit for a customer. That is why the demand for Colgate toothpaste is still very high in comparison with other toothpaste because it has become a part of the habit. Then we have absolute cost advantage. What does that mean? That means whenever the cost of incumbent companies are below those of new rivals, and they enable incumbents to undercut the prices of rivals by an amount equal to the cost disadvantage without sacrificing profits. And scale related advantages are whenever a company's cost per unit fall as the volume of production and sale increase. Economies of scale in production created by setup cost and extensive division of labor and advantages in bulk buying and so on are the most familiar source of scale advantages. Moving on to the price analysis of markets, the law of supply takes into account its main determinant, that is price of the commodity. The law of supply states that the supply of a commodity refers to the various quantities of the commodity which a seller is willing and able to sell at different prices in a market. At a point of time, ceteris paribus, other things remain the same. Supply is related to scarce goods and not freely available goods. So this is how the demand and supply curve. So say for 150 demand, the price is 3 because this is the point where demand and supply curve cut each other. So the supply line goes by way of increasing, and the demand line goes by way of decreasing. So the moment you decrease the prices, the demand will increase. Effect of change in demand. So effect of change in demand based on price and quantity. We have earlier seen also in our demand study that the demand gets increased because there is a change in the price. So if a demand is increased, so increase in demand is represented by shift towards the right hand side. So from D1, if the demand is increased to D2 and the supply lines remains, then the price can also be increased. Same way, the demand decreases also, so it moves towards the left. For increase, the curve moves to the right. For decrease, the curve moves to the left. So from the demand D1, it moves to D2. So for a quantity Q1 with the price P1, even the quantity demanded will become less and the price will subsequently go down. So this is how increase in demand and decrease in demands are reflected by way of supply, price, and quantity. Effects of change in supply, same way. The graph is there. On y-axis, the price is the P1, P2 is price, and x-axis it is Q1, Q2, that is quantity. So the demand line D1 is given. So on a supply side of say S1, if the supply is increased to S2, so once you increase the supply, so what it will affect, because the supply is more, so that definitely the demand will be less. So the demand is less, so the price will go down. So from price P1 and the quantity Q1, the price goes down, it comes to the price level of P2, but the quantity sold increases because the supply is on a higher side. Same way, decrease in sales. So how the decrease in sales happen? We have the supply line S1. Then what we do? We have a new supply line which is less than the existing supply line. So what happens, since the demand increases because the supply is now less, so the price also gets increased. Since supply is less, the quantity sold will be less. In the previous graph, the supply has increased, so the quantity sold is increased. And since the quantity sold is increased, the supply is increased, so definitely the price went down. But in case of a short in supply, the quantity is decreased, but then the customer's demands are there, the demand gets increased, and definitely the customer has to pay the price, a new price which is higher than the previous price. So this is how the price factor and the supply line and the demand line works accordingly. So now with this we have ended the unit 10 and moving on to the unit 11, block 4, pricing under perfect competition and pure monopoly. So what is the characteristics of perfect competition? There are large number of independent, relatively small sellers and buyers. The example is basically the vegetable markets, where we find that large number of buyers are there and large number of sellers are there. So the price of the product is basically determined by the market. Products sold by different sellers are homogeneous and identical. So if we purchase, say, in a vegetable market tomato from one seller or another seller, the product component remains same for everyone. So the products are homogeneous and identical. No restriction on entry of new firms into the industry, and the existing firms are free to leave the industry. So today you may find some new vendors are there. Tomorrow some old vendors may migrate to some other activities. So there is no restriction on entry of new firms. Buyers and sellers in the market have perfect knowledge about the conditions. Price of the product is not affected by the cost of transportation of goods. And in perfectly competitive markets, consumer surplus is the maximum, while in monopoly market it is more. So what exactly happens that in a competitive market, the customer gets the best price because there are a lot of sellers and lot of buyers with information available to both of them in abundance. So here the customers money is being spent on a relatively uh, on such a market price that he has surplus with him. So having a surplus with him means that he can utilize the surplus for his own gain. Where for a monopoly firm, the prices are being commanded by a monopoly firm. So once the monopoly firm increases the prices, the consumer pockets become stressed. So the consumer surplus, which used to be with the customer because of a perfect competition, now goes into the hand of a monopoly firm because of the monopoly markets. So in a perfect competition, the consumer surplus is maximum. In a monopoly market, the consumer surplus is lowest. The characteristics of perfect competition: number and size of distribution of sellers, many small sellers. No individual seller is able to exercise a significant influence over price. Number and size distribution of buyers, many small buyers. No buyer is able to exert a significant influence over price. Product differentiation, no product differentiation, almost identical. Decisions to buy are made on the basis of price and conditions of entry and exit. Easy entry, easy exit. Resources are easily transferable among investors. So this is the characteristic of perfect competition. Profit maximizing output in the short run. Under perfect competition, since an individual firm cannot influence the market price by raising or lowering its input, the firm faces a horizontal demand curve. That is, the demand curve of any single firm is perfectly elastic. Its elasticity is equal to infinity at all levels of output. So what does that mean? That perfect competition, one firm doesn't have a command over the market. And since it doesn't have a command over the market, so it cannot influence the price of its products. So even if uh, reduces its output, it doesn't affect the price because there are a lot of competitors, they will come in place of him and will sell their products. So in this situation, the firm faces a horizontal demand curve. So the demand curve remains horizontal. That is, the demand curve of any single firm is perfectly elastic. A firm under perfect competition is a price taker and not a price maker. So price taker means it has to accept the price prevalent in the market of that product. Since lot of sellers are there, so perfect competition exists. In perfect competition, it is the market which determines the price of the product which can be sold, and therefore a firm in a perfect competition is only a price taker, not a price maker. Because an individual firm's demand or average revenue curve is horizontal under perfect competition, the marginal revenue curve of the firm is also horizontal, coincides with AR curve. AR curve is average revenue curve. So let's just look at this graph, profit maximizing equilibrium in the short run. So we have demand D, and then we have a demand D1 and demand D3. So demand D1, that is not D, that is demand D2 and demand D3. This the price is P1, P2 and P3. What we have seen is that the demand is a straight. In perfect competition, the demand is straight at a price. So D1 is equal to MR1, D2 is so marginal curve. So marginal cost, average total cost, average variable cost, and S is a seller. Q1, Q2, Q3 is a quantity, P1, P2, P3 is a price. So this is how the graph shows how in short run, the profit maximization equilibrium works. In the long run, how the profit maximizing equilibrium run in the long run. So in the long run, the LMC and LAC. So there is a block which is BSUR, which is the margin, which is the money, which is the margin money, which remains with the profit maximizing output. So by selling the quantity, you can increase the profit also. What are the characteristics of a monopoly? The market structure characteristics of monopoly are listed below. Number and size of distribution of sellers. It's a single seller. Monopoly means one seller. Number and size of distribution of buyers, unspecified. Buyers are many. May not be as large as what happens in perfect competition, but they are high in numbers. Product differentiation, there is no close substitutes, it's only a remote substitute. Conditions of entry and exit prohibited or difficult to enter. Manager of firms in a perfectly competitive market facing a horizontal demand curve would have no control over the price and they simply choose the profit maximizing option. However, the monopoly firm facing a downward sloping demand curve has power to control the price of its product. There the demand curve was horizontal, so the firm didn't have any command over the price that it can charge for the product. But here, being a monopoly, the curve is a downward, so that there is a chance of the firm to control the price of its product. So the profit maximization of a monopoly firm, equilibrium output and price under monopoly. So the demand is D1, price is P. So we see that marginal cost and average cost, the marginal cost is steeply rising in comparison with average cost. So initially the marginal cost was down, gradually it started increasing. At a point came when the marginal cost and average cost cut each other. Then the demand states that at the price P, the demand is R. Since the marginal and the average costs affect the demand curve, so for a marginal revenue, for a maximum revenue, the things will have to be worked out at a new level, and therefore the equilibrium is obtained by way of output and price under monopoly. Power is an equation of a firm is given as mu, which is equal to P minus MC divided by P, where P is equal to price of the firm's product, MC is equal to firm's marginal cost. We know that at equilibrium output, MC is equal to MR. You can look at this also. MC is equal to MR. So that is the E point where it cuts each other. So we know that equilibrium output MC is equal to MR and MR is equal to P. Bracket starts with 1 minus 1 by E, where E is the elasticity, price elasticity of demand. So mu is equal to P minus MC divided by P is equal to P minus MR divided by P is equal to 1 minus MR by P. So MR by P is equal to what? 1 minus 1 by E. So mu is equal to finally 1 by E. So monopoly power is the inverse of elasticity. So we can say that monopoly is inversely proportional to elasticity. Namaste. We have ended our class. In the next session, we will take the final things.